Specifically, what I'm calling on and changing in my requested plan of the legislature is a $300 tax credit on property tax costs, which would apply to the vast majority of middle-income earners in our state.
How does giving someone a $200 tax increase as opposed to a $500 tax increase give them relief? It's only relief from your plan. It's not relief from anything except your plan.
Well, it's a how would you like me to answer that? What I am recommending. No, wait a minute. With all due respect, let me say this: that what it is saying quite clearly is that I believe that there should be a minor shift in the obligation from the original plan.
After 20 of these meetings, the only change that you propose to make to the budget package is this.
This is the change.
Everything you heard, that's the only change you're going to propose.
This is the change that I am proposing the legislature consider as it goes into its deliberations, and specifically the Finance Committee.
Why only this one change? Certainly, people raised a whole bunch of other issues, so I'm just curious. You're making one change.
Well, this is a pretty significant one.
Did you consider making additional spending cuts to ease the property tax burden further?
Again, that's a process, and I believe the framework is the right framework that I've previously outlined. So that $1.8 billion in spending reductions from the November 15th budget is the appropriate amount, and $1.5 billion is the appropriate amount in the revenue side.
The status of the union negotiations? I mean, when is push going to come to shove here?
Listen, I think this is a process that's been engaged in over a long period of time. Listen, lots of people from unions came to the town hall meetings. I've certainly spoken to folks about what would transpire if we don't get to the point. I think everybody knows what everybody's position is, and it's a process that will continue to play out for some number of days.
And I think what we heard, and I'll be lying if I said I know all the details. Obviously, I don't think the governor was explicit at the details that he just laid forth. But I guess what he's saying is I've heard what I've heard, and I'm going to restore at least $300 of the $500 worth of a property tax credit. The way he pays for that is by redefining wealth. In other words, in the governor's initial budget, he had certain tax brackets for the wealthier of our taxpayers that grew incrementally with the amount of money that one makes. And what he's simply done is shifted downward the start of those tax brackets so that the higher tax bracket kicks in at a lower income rate, and he takes that money and he shifts it to restoring the property tax credit. And I guess, folks, basically it's what I've said exactly over the last couple of days. I indicated to you that the governor said, I'm all ears, I'm listening, but here's the deal. You can't budge off my numbers. I might tinker within them, but I'm not going to drop lower than $1.9 billion in taxes, and I'm not going to cut any more spending. And sure enough, today he announced, I'm going to tinker within those brackets, but I'm not lowering them. I'm just going to shift them a little bit. And if you think about where he's shifting a little bit, it's the exact criticism that the majority Democrats in the legislature had levied or had concerns with when he first introduced the budget. So when I said before that the macaroni is cooked, that this deal is being negotiated with the Democrats, so that sooner rather than later they could come out with a solely owned Democratic solution to the state's problem, this to me is the best evidence. Because the changes you saw today is not as a result of the listening tour, because the listening tour said cut spending. There's no spending cut. This is a result of negotiations with the Democratic legislature that said, we want to join you in your budget. Here's our concerns. You tax the middle class too much. You don't tax the wealthy enough. And he made that change. OFA and OPM themselves came out with new consensus revenue estimates. They increased the revenue by $175 million. That means they said, given our current tax structure, this is since the governor came out with his budget, we have an additional $175 million. Now, you would think you'd take that money and say, here's my opportunity to lower the amount that I taxed. No. It's just shifting within the framework. Right here, we introduced 44 bills into the legislature and said at that time, we offer this to the governor as ideas on how to reduce spending. They weren't adopted. So when you come to us and say, I'll listen to whatever you have to say, but I'm not budging off my number. So what is it you want? That I don't think is negotiation. That is evidence that the deal has been made with the Democratic majority to have a Democratic solution to this budget crisis. And by the way, that is the governor's right to do as a Democrat with a Democratic legislature. It is not the right thing to do, but it is the governor's right to do. And that's what he did. You know, I have to hearken back to his budget address, where he said, while I do believe in a progressive income tax, I do not believe that we should punish success or wealth. That's why taxes will rise on income over $1 million by 0.2% on top of the increases you passed previously. When he was in New London, he said, these people are a lot more mobile than people in the middle class like you and me, he said, adding he proposed a new sales tax surcharge on expensive clothing, jewelry, and high-priced cars and other luxury items. He then said, we need to maintain a competitive advantage. We do not want to frighten, scare, or have people who create jobs leave. That's how he defended his initial tax package. Today we saw that he just shifted it away from the middle class to those that he said we don't want to scare away. Did not cut spending, did not even use the $175 million to mitigate the effect of the tax package.